So welcome everyone to the 31st Hands-on Agile meetup. Today I'm really proud that Valerio and Zeina will be joining us. And they will introduce us to product innovation with the Zones of Value framework. This is going to be cool and fun. So let's have a brief check-in to see where you're from. So who's joining from what place? That would be really interesting to see. So last time we had a real diverse audience from Vietnam to South Africa to the United States. If you use the chat for that purpose, let's see where you're all from. That would be totally great. Washington, D.C. Yeah, awesome. That's good. London, Delaware, New Jersey, Sweden, Berlin, Cologne, Sarajevo, Tampa, Florida, London, New Hampshire, Magdeburg, Switzerland, Lucerne, Oakland. It's a really state-heavy meetup that we have here, Valerio. So we're really drawing in the crowds. So let's see what's going to happen.
It's actually nice to have an international crowd. Very cool. Around the world.
We've been going through certainly a lot of trouble in recent months, certainly, and a lot of pain. But there are one or two really good aspects about this too. I mean, we would have never had this kind of community that we're currently enjoying. So the moment we switched Hands-on Agile from a local Berlin meetup to an international one, it got so much more interesting. So diversity really adds. So previously you were meeting the same folks. Which, don't get me wrong, I love them. I'm happy to see them, but it's so much more interesting if other people are adding to the whole experience.
How long have you been doing this, Stefan?
The meetup for I think 4 years or so. So we put it all together, about 40 meetups or so in the meantime. So it's approximately one a month or so. And then we have a long summer break and a winter break. But anyway, it's not about me. It's about you, Valerio and Zeina. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Actually, it's not even about me or Zeina. It's about zones of value and the 5 dimensions of innovation. So thank you, Stefan.
Even better.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are super excited to speak to you all today. Valerio and I are part of Spark Engine, which is a product innovation training program and certification program. We focus really heavily on helping innovators, product managers, and everyone adjacent to product management or working on product teams to better approach problems in different ways. So to, look at problems from a different lens, identify unique solutions, and really innovate within their organizations. So we are super excited to have all of you here today. And my name is Zeina. I am a certified product innovation trainer. I'm a coactive coach, as well as a digital innovation consultant. I've been in the product world in various capacities for many years. Speaking of an international crowd, I've lived many places. I've traveled a lot from originally from Beirut, Lebanon, and then made my way through Los Angeles and Dubai and Brazil. And now I'm in Manhattan, in New York. I am very passionate about this topic only because I've worked at various companies and again, in various capacities and seen what works, what doesn't, what really helps people spark and drive innovation. And a lot of the programs and frameworks we offer are really from our experience working with a lot of different companies doing this type of work. So again, super excited to meet all of you and hopefully connect after this workshop. One thing I will add is the workshop is highly interactive. So this is not, which nothing wrong with it, but this is not a sit and listen. So we will have activities and breakout rooms, and this will be a very collaborative learning environment. So hopefully, whoever is on is able to connect and work with other teammates as we go through this material.
Very nice. And next, my name is Valerio Zanini. I'm originally from Italy, and I moved to the United States in 2004 for business school. And then ever since, I have been involved in several different companies, different organizations in product management roles. I'm now a certified Scrum trainer with the Scrum Alliance and a certified product innovation trainer with Spark Engine, the program that Zeina mentioned earlier. I've also collaborated with Comparative Agility to create an assessment for product managers and product innovators on skill set and techniques to drive product innovation and product management. And one invitation will be after this webinar to go check out the assessment on comparativeagility.com. And with that, I think we can start our conversation today about the 5 dimensions of innovation and the zones of value, which are 2 very important frameworks that we use in the Spark Engine program.
So to kick off, we wanted to start with a little bit of a design challenge or a product challenge. I want everyone to envision that they work on a product team and they receive a request to build a smart coffee mug that is ready to go when someone wakes up in the morning. So that's a request. I'm not going to give you a lot of context, but the activity is to team up in breakout rooms, which we'll set up, and think about how you would approach this request. What would you do? How would you look at this problem? And what would be some of the things that you would do to address this as a product person?
So we're going to give 5 minutes, and I have the breakout rooms open in groups of 4 people.
When you go into the breakout room, introduce yourselves, do a little bit of a, just to meet and greet, and then approach this problem as if you were a product team working together. How would you address it? What would your process be? What would you do? What would you make of this as your approach? Draw it on a piece of paper. You can take notes, however you want. We'll come back and do a share out with the rest of the group. So if you have paper with you, you can feel free to sketch anything you'd like, put your ideas down, collaborate on something you can share with the rest of the group.
And of course, introduce yourself to everybody else in the room. Yep. So how much time do we have for this exercise?
I think we did a total of 7 minutes. So do 2 minutes of introductions and then 5 minutes to work on the problem itself.
Okay, cool. You answered my question, Zeina. It was a tricky question for everybody else.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Who wants to share the ideas they came up with in their group?
Sure, why not? So I was with Celia and Amber, and we talked about the function, the emotion, and the social, as well as the technical of the cup. We thought that if we had a certain temperature that we particularly like, for instance, you're having tea and you like 50 degrees Fahrenheit, it would beep you. It came to that. So if it's too hot, comes down to that particular temperature, and then beep. Oh, I'm ready to have my coffee. It's perfect, or tea in this case. We also thought, well, maybe there's a color associated to that. If it's too hot, red. If it's too cold, blue. Or somewhere in between, obviously. Let's see, Celia came up with some inspiring words. Whatever came up with inspiring words. Now, we didn't get the inspiring words, but we thought that was kind of interesting. Obviously, it's a social accessory. And we were also talking about social connectivity, but that was the last word before you so rudely interrupted us.
Very nice.
There you go.
Seems like some creative ideas came out of that. One other group want to share?
Yeah, we can share. One of the things, this is Vince Carter, and I was with Andre and Stephen. Obviously, right at the very beginning, we're like, wow, wait a second. I would love to know, what's the job to be done? What are we trying to fully accomplish here? What's the persona of the person? And what is smart? And so we had a lot of those, and we said, all right, these are a lot of things. If I was going to approach it, I would want to try and answer first before jumping in. But we said, all right, but let's just start brainstorming now and to say, okay, what would we do if we had something like a mural or a whiteboard and we're going to start sticky noting things? And so we said, all right, last minutes, this is some sticky note ideas. So we said, obviously a timer associated, maybe an Internet of Things, an app to go along with it. Maybe it indicates when it's dirty or clean and stuff. So, learns your habits as to what time you maybe wake up. So you don't even have to set the schedule. Potentially, maybe it brews on its own. We came up with the idea about temperatures as well. Didn't go into much detail, but different type of temperature indicators, maybe a built-in heater in it. Where's the location of the mug if you lose it, and then last of all, it must serve the best cup of coffee we can imagine. So.
I like that. It's like the value there. Very cool. So Vincent actually touched on something pretty interesting, right? So coming into the group, they had what we like to call a question storm before they had the brainstorm, right? What job is to be done? Kind of what problem are we solving? What value are we trying to create for this persona that also was not mentioned in the request? So this activity, a little bit of a trick question, but also a thought exercise to help us kind of think through how easy it is for, product people, creative people in general, people in the business world, problem solvers, to jump into the solution space, right? So, a lot of the ideas, which were awesome and super creative, were that our teams tend to generate were living in what we call the solution space, which is great. But what I liked with what Vince said, and the gentleman earlier touched on it too, is what problem are we really solving? How can we kind of shift back, step back, ask the questions, think about what value we're trying to create, who are we solving for, and sort of the purpose behind why we're getting this request, right? And spending time in the problem space understanding that. So that's what we want to talk about today. Our 5D framework is really set up to help us kind of think through the various approaches and ways we can identify and look at things in the problem space and stay there as long as possible to get a better understanding of the people that we're trying to create value for. And then we'll go into the zones of value as one of the frameworks to help us kind of organize around that value and then develop features aligned to that value. And then also the frameworks and approaches in the solution space. So the next activity is to get out a piece of paper and draw 5 circles that look as close to this as you can get them. Maybe put a line in the middle, problem space on one side and solution space on the other side. And then the first circle, put discover. This is the first piece of our 5Ds. And what we're really trying to answer and discover is, what is the problem, right? So what is the problem? Who is the person experiencing this problem? What are the pains? What are they trying to achieve? What are they trying to accomplish? And a lot of interesting work happens here is that, when you spend the time to just focus on the problem and stay in the problem space, you not only develop a better understanding of your customers, but you may identify other opportunities and things that, in the future you may want to address, or you may identify maybe this is not about the mug, it's about something totally different, right? So in this phase in Discover, you're really trying to get clarity around the problem and get as clear of a definition as you can get to that includes context, the person, the actual experience that they're having, the emotional impact, and then the actual consequence of the problem. And so from there, our next circle is define. After establishing what the problem is and getting some sense of who it's for and a very clear context of what scenario this is happening, we can start thinking about how are ways we can actually solve this problem. So we've identified some people who are having this, we've defined the problem with more clarity, and then we move into how do we actually think about solving this. The next piece is the design phase, right? So we put this in the middle between the problem space and solution space because it is very iterative. This is not a linear process, right? As you're going through this, you're learning more, you're discovering more, and you might be going back and forth a few times from these various activities as your understanding grows, right? And to move into that, the design phase really has a lot of activities that are on both sides. It's understanding the user, their problems, refining and redefining, if necessary, your problems, and then starting to think about what are the possible solutions, what value are we trying to generate, what are our outcomes, how could we actually start to ideate around solving this for users or for our customers. And then the fourth circle, drive. And from here, what you're trying to get is from design, you have some ideas and solutions. Now you want to try those solutions out and build them and further your path to actually launching something in market that solves your original problem, right? So in this phase, it's really just about sort of getting more crisp, developing your ideas a little bit more, selecting the right ideas, developing those ideas, and then prototyping, all that fun stuff that the product people have to do to really get a better understanding of how do we move forward with building the right thing and how to build it right. So that's sort of the drive phase. And then coming out of that, you're really going into deliver mode, which is like, how are we going to validate that we actually achieved the value that we're trying to generate? We achieved the outcomes for our users that we've defined in the discover and the define phase, and put the product out to market. So you can think of it as like the first step is like, we're trying to get to a problem solution fit. And then from there, we're trying to get to a product market fit, which is where deliver comes in. And this is now your product's in market, people are using it, you're learning, you're generating feedback, but you don't stop there. You go back, you take what you've learned in the market, and then you go through the cycle again. So this is what we call the 5 Ds. We have pulled together lots of frameworks within each of these dimensions that help people, sort of call them collaborative frameworks for sense making, really help people make sense of various elements of their projects as they move around and make sure that they're investing in the right places, making the right bets, solving the right things, and generating really unique solutions. So I want to pause here and just open it up to the group. What came up for you here as you were looking at these, and also in the context of the project that you just worked on with your team?
Mine would be bringing a person, a group along the journey with us so we can build it in parallel, so we have more information from the get-go as we're going through this journey.
Yeah, I love that, actually. So make them almost part of your process throughout the way, right? Your user.
Yeah, exactly. And from the Agile space, I'm wondering, and I'm not sure if you do this, is how much, this is a hard word to say, parallelism can you do with each of these? Discover, define, build, design, build, drive, build, deliver, build.
A lot, right? And I think that's the purpose. So this is not at all linear, step-by-step, check the box guide, right? You could be doing a lot of discover and define while you're in drive and building things out, continuous discovery. If you have the capabilities and research, should be part of all the development activities as well, right? And why we like calling it the problem space is as you're going through this, new opportunities will emerge, right? As you learn more about your users, especially if you're bringing them along that journey, other things will be discovered that you may not want to shift focus on right away, but you want to put those opportunities, those new problems that you've uncovered into your problem space and come back to them and do more discovery at some point. So we like to think about it as we have all of these tools within all of these dimensions, and you can select and pick the tools that make the most sense depending on, where you are with the project. So you could even be in a deliver phase and you're learning, but you say, hey, there's an insight here, this is interesting. The users are behaving in a strange way, not like we expected. And you can jump into discover, pull out a couple of frameworks, do a little discovery work, and come back and adjust. So that's sort of the framing that we'd like to have, that this is not linear, it's not step-by-step, it's a toolbox, and you pull things out as needed to really help to drive value and continue making progress with your products and ideas. And that is helpful when you're learning, but then over time, as you're doing this with teams and you're maturing with your process and your products, it's just really helpful to be able to react to whatever is required in the context and the situation that you have. So, having adaptable frameworks that can help you navigate your way through problem-based research, problem framing, idea development, product strategy, problem solution fit, all that good stuff is something we find really valuable. And for today, I'm going to pass this on to Valerio. One of the frameworks within our design toolkit is the zones of value. This is a little bit more nuanced and really interesting way to try to maintain and keep focus, customer focus and value focus throughout your development process, and sort of why we wanted to share it with you all today. So Valerio, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Zeina. So let me stop the sharing. I want to ask you a question first. We define a product as a vehicle to deliver value to the customers, value to the users. So when we talk about value, what are we talking about? So in the previous example, the coffee mug example, I would like for you to meet with your team members and define a couple of examples of what type of value does the customer get from that mug, from that coffee mug. Make sense what I'm asking? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to open up the breakout room for like 3 minutes. Come up with a couple of examples of value that the customers get from the coffee mug that you discussed earlier. All right, welcome back. Let's hear from a couple of you. What type of value does the customers get from that idea of the smart coffee mug?
I can start. I was in a group with Bernard and Vin, and we thought of a couple of value points. One of them being that the coffee is going to save us time by being smart, and also to give us the energy that we need when we wake up. And one idea that we had was to sync the smart coffee cup with our REM cycles, so it can sense when we're about to wake up, not as an alarm clock, that would be rude, but to sync with our REM cycles to provide coffee at the ideal moment.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, awesome.
That sounds like 4 or 5 times a night.
Exactly.
So save time and give you a boost of energy and be ready whenever you need it to be ready, right? Any other examples? What did you discuss in your groups?
We mentioned convenience and also like a security and kind of a risk reduction whereby you know that you're going to wake up to the sounds that you want to because you have a preset alarm sounds, and also the coffee's going to be ready right when you wake up next to your nightstand. So it gives people a sense of comfort and confidence too, because when you wake up on time, they're going to drink their coffee, they're going to be ready to greet the day.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Yeah, having the comfort, and you know that when you wake up, a nice warm coffee is going to be there waiting for you. Very cool. You said security. What do you mean by security?
We're going to build in quality to the product, obviously. So we're going to know that we're going to wake up. I think that's probably a quality issue. We're going to wake up when we said, maybe there's a backup alarm. Maybe there's a snooze protector that protects you from snoozing and falling asleep and will wake you up no matter what. Maybe you'll send someone over to your home and beat you over the head with a hammer or something to try to wake you up. Very customized product. That would be for the higher end.
Of course. Right. And so it could be even a security against the hacker hacking into your own smart thing and then changing the setting for your coffee. Now your comfort goes away.
Right. Too much comfort can be a bad thing.
Right. Awesome. Any other examples? Let's hear one more.
Andre here. I was again in the group with Vincent and Stephen. So we added on top of quality and time-saving things also values like instant gratification, because the customer gets something without doing something in the morning. Adding on top here a rejection of stress, because he doesn't need to care. Cup is smart enough to prepare the best coffee in the world and it tastes instantly. It even touches something like self-care moments and having a first positive thing in the morning that's being created for the customer to give him a safe surrounding, but an emotional safe space. Things like this were discussed in our groups.
Very cool. Very nice. So awesome. By understanding the values that the customers will or may get from our product, we are also somehow making a connection with features that we may want to build into the product. And if you remember the picture before, we are in the zones of value is in that space, the transition between the problem space and the solution space. So we are in the design dimension right now, where we are trying to figure out what to build. And understanding the values and then transitioning to the features for our product is where the zones of value really help us out. So let's take an example. Let's look at an example, and then we do an exercise on that. So what is the zones of value? The zones of value, first of all, just to ground ourselves in understanding, is an experience framework. So it's a framework, and as every framework is not like a strict structure or a strict set of rules. It gives us the space, a predefined sort of space, to help us ideate and think about the values and what we want to build into the product, and they can be extended, can be customized as we need, that like every good framework. In this case, this is an experience framework for architecting your product, especially looking at the very human-centric way. Where does it come from? And we have the next quote here. It's derived from a very deep understanding of people and what they value. That's why we are in the design dimension, which follows the discover and the define dimension. So we have developed all that understanding about their needs and what they value, and now we can use that to create a deeper understanding. So let's see an example. The zones of value looks like something like this. So you have different zones, starting from the center. That's your core product value. What kind of values that the customer get from your core product? And that's pretty much what you all have been thinking about so far. And then there could be additional zones to expand your understanding and expand the value that the customers get from your product. For example, the personalized zone that you see on the top right. Personalized is what value does the customer get so they can personalize their experience in using this product. Like, I don't know, for example, this could be like, I want to have a vanilla coffee rather than a dark coffee. How can I personalize the coffee that I want to set up? Another zone could be the welcome zone. How does the customer get welcomed into the world of our new product? So I just bought it. I go home and I unbox it. And how do I get welcome into that world? What do we want the customer to perceive, to receive, to get from that experience? And then we could have additional zones like the explored zone. How do I explore the product? The empowered zone. How does it empower me in the morning, for example? How does it help me to connect, or does it guide me in my day-to-day activities? And there could be even additional zones here. So the one you see here is an example, a starting framework that you can use to begin your exploration in the zones of value. Then you can expand it in other zones if you see the need for that. Let's look at the next slide. We want to share an example. So this is something that fictitious that we built for Tesla. Pretending we were working for Tesla. Tesla, of course, is an electric car. So the core product value you see in the middle, in the center, is that this is a premium car. It has software features and auto updates, charging station maps. These are all core statements of value the customers get from buying a Tesla, a long-range battery, for example. But then look at the personalized zone. How can we personalize the experience for our customers so that they feel like it's their Tesla? So, for example, it could be a Tesla swag or club points, or even the possibility to design your own Tesla. This is an additional value statement that customers may get from our product. How do we empower the customers? So like an extended battery range, auto reminder for charging. So to make the customer feel empowered and feel comfortable in driving the car. And then as you go around the different zones, you may see how we have brainstormed different types of values that the customers may get from each of these zones. Let me stop here one sec to answer any questions before we do an exercise altogether.
So quick question. This is Vince. Do you recommend that we should like pause and look at each zone as we're determining the value? Is this something like I guess I'm kind of figuring tactically, if I was looking at this, should we go, hey, let's take a second. We should probably look at each one of these zones and see what's the value in each one of those?
That will be my suggestion, yes. So the value of the framework, the zones of value framework, is that instead of just coming up with one idea and then go and build it, and then we risk of losing the bigger picture. Using the zones of value, remember, we are in the design dimension here, right? So we are thinking about what is the solution we want to build. Using the zones of value, we can understand all the different areas of value that our customers may care about or they may get from our product. So it helps really broaden our understanding, our vision for the product, and in the end, build a better product.
I'll just add to that. So coming off of what Valeria said earlier, these really are derived from a deep understanding of your customers and your stakeholders. So I think Patrick mentioned the security as a value, right, for the coffee mug. So you could have a security zone and, all the various elements and ideas that can contribute to generating that type of security value. So these are not fixed per se, but they are generated from the understanding of your stakeholders and your customers. And I say stakeholders because I've actually used this for much more what people call more technical projects as well, and in trying to understand, like, oh, there are certain things that maybe value that we're driving internally for a development group or a data science group, or so we think about all the different places where value exists from what we're trying to do and start to frame it up in this way. So these are pretty good and they're general, and they tend to apply to a lot of different products and services out there, but they are definitely not fixed. So you can generate your own zones, create, from what you've learned from your customers, stakeholders, users, all that. Yeah.
This is fantastic stuff, by the way. I love it. I love the non-linearity. The dialectical quality to it seems to suggest the need for cross-functionality for the teams. And in terms of nonlinear process, could you flesh out maybe the relationship between the 5Ds and the zones of value in terms of how you approach this? Maybe not mechanically per se, but just, you have experience with this, obviously. So if you could talk about that.
Yeah, so the 5Ds are a larger construct, like the 5 dimensions of innovation. And within each dimension, there are multiple frameworks and tools and ways of looking at problems from different lenses and different perspectives. So zones of value happens to fit into one of the dimensions, which is a design dimension. And the reason this fits in well within the design dimension is that it really bridges you between the problem space and the solution space. So if you remember those 5 circles that we drew, right, we had those dimensions. This framework really kind of lives there as you're starting to think about, but not fully invested in, right, all of the different ideas, features, and how you're going to drive value to your customers. So that's the relationship there. So the construct, the larger construct, is the 5Ds, and the framework is one of many within one of the Ds.
So are there other types of frameworks that go like the 5Ds, the value zones? Are those, is there a different, let's say, diagram for each one of those 5Ds?
Yeah, there are multiple frameworks and diagrams within each one. So within discovery, we have problem-based research, we have empathy, developing personas, using outcomes, things like that. So each one has multiple frameworks. It would take a full week to teach all of them. But and a lot are kind of adapted from other methodologies as well, and sort of mixed into what we find works really well. And I like, Patrick, how you said it, right? It's really non-linear, and that's sort of our goal here, because it's just not how reality works and not how real projects work, and they're not linear. And so we have to kind of shift our thinking to something more dialectical. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Just a follow-up to that, is there a hierarchy? It sounds like sense making is the top, and then you have the 5Ds, and then you have the zones of value, and then you have the framework. Is that the hierarchy?
At every stage, we have examples of activities and tools and frameworks that you would conduct, right, to learn more about the customer and the need or the opportunity. So in discovery, you do empathy interviews, you can do observation canvases, an insight mining exercise, and many more, right? Zones of value is here in design when you're trying to really get to what we call problem solution fit, right? And there are so many things within design that you could do, so many frameworks. Zones of value is one of them. Concept development is one of them. Buy a feature, product vision, design sprints, that's an entire, methodology within design that people activate when they have a really big, meaty problem to solve, or even a small one, right? And so within these, we have various frameworks. They're not all listed here. These are examples. And so I guess it would be the construct is the 5Ds, and then frameworks within each one, right? And what I refer to frameworks is that they are all essentially ways, collaborative activities for sense making, right? So really to help generate shared understanding, move people forward into a better confidence in where they're placing their bets, right?
Yeah, I got you now. Thank you.
Yeah, and we have designed this big map as really an effort to help anybody decide what tools to use or whatever stage they are.
Yeah, and it's very simplified. That's a very nice design. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so we would like for you to take a piece of paper, and if you have not done that yet, create a few circles on the piece of paper representing different zones of value. And then we are going to do an exercise altogether. To share an example, I put a link in the chat. And if you open the link, it shows a framework, an empty framework for the zones of value. You can take that as an example and copy that on paper. What we would like to do next is a little bit of imagination journey. And in particular, imagine that we are all working for Netflix. I assume everybody knows Netflix, right? Yeah, cool. Okay, video on demand, streaming movies, and so on. So imagine that we are working for Netflix, and we have been tasked with solving a new challenge. And the challenge is this. As Netflix, how might we leverage our library of videos to support learning for students in schools? And in particular, we would like to look for an outcome that is democratize and expand horizons to create more diversity of knowledge for all the students. So now we would like for you to use the zones of value framework to brainstorm with the rest of your teams different zones of value, starting from the core product experience, what students and maybe even teachers here may get from our product offering, and then other zones of value where they may get value from this. Make sense what we're asking for in the exercise? Yeah? Thumbs up, ready to go? Yes? Okay. So we're going to give you 10 minutes, work together with your team. And I know we are not all together, so each one of you may have a different piece of paper. That's fine. Collaborate and create a zones of value framework for this challenge. I copied that in the chat, so everybody should have that available. And off we go. All right, welcome back. I was like a fly on the wall, and I think Zeina was there too, just listening. Great conversations. I even heard somebody wanted to start a business to compete with Netflix. I'm doing this. Great. All right, let's hear a couple of examples. What did you come up with? You want to share a couple of examples of zones that you explored in this exercise?
Yeah, sure. So myself, Arnie, and Bobby, we were a team. So one thing we looked at with respect to the core functionality is possibly Netflix creating sort of like a playlist of study videos that is organized by various subjects. And we might also look at a search functionality that allows students to actually filter out videos by topics specifically that they want to learn and study. So we felt that these were sort of the core areas of the product. And with respect to the Empower Zone, so Bobby had an interesting idea that why don't we allow schools to actually produce and offer their content through Netflix to their students. So Netflix being a content delivery platform, so it can also be customized to actually offer this through, behave as a channel during this pandemic times. So that is something that we looked at, and we also brought about the idea of bite-sized videos like TikTok consumption, right? So that could be our welcome zone where we are looking at quick information video about what you're going to see next in this entire, video, or do you want to learn in this video?
Okay, thank you, Deepak.
Cool. I can follow, Deepak. My team with Bernard and Vin, and we thought of a few zones, but I think two of the coolest we thought of was a security zone and a dynamic zone. So security zone being, we assume that these students some might be quite young children, some might be in the tween space, etc. So making sure that the content that they are viewing or hearing, participating in, is really relevant for different age groups, and there's no inappropriate material that they might be having access to. And the second zone of dynamic zone was sort of thinking about how each of us learns differently and we gravitate towards certain methods of delivery, and how that can still change depending on the day and the content. So, maybe there are more active modules. I know Netflix does a few like Let's Plays type things, so it's interactive. Maybe there are more storytelling devices. Maybe it's more visual. Maybe it's a bit more experiential in a way. So yeah, a specific zone kind of catered to different ways of learning to make sure that all students benefit.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd like to just comment on that real quick. I think it's really amazing, and that you focused on what are the needs of the parents and the kids that will be providing the service for, right? What is going to matter to them? What is going to be valuable to them, right? And then you shape the zones around those values, which is pretty much exactly the purpose of this exercise. So I like that, and I wanted to just call that out. That's security and that dynamic feature of different ways of learning, and security of parents are going to be worried about their kids maybe seeing the wrong things. So I think that's super cool. Good work.
We covered a lot of different zones. I was just curious. One of the thoughts Miss Ellen might have alluded to this a little bit, but a notion of a classroom interface, so that maybe they could be watching separately or individually, and then they stop, pause the film, and then have a discussion. And I'm wondering, what would that feature? Where would that fit in the zones of value? Is that a connect zone, or is it a core product value? How would you locate that inside the zones of value, a classroom interface?
Yeah, I think a quick thought is, first of all, is also you came up with this understanding of that value for the kids and for the teachers. Really, which specific zone you put that into it is not important. This is a framework, right? It's there to give you a space to think about different zones. And however you want to use that space is your space.
I got you. Just to generate ideas, not to slave to the tool.
Right. It's not like there's not like a right solution. We are not looking for this is the perfect solution to the puzzle. It's not that, right? It's just a space for you to think about different values, different value statements, and what really matters to the end users, to the users of your product.
Thank you.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because one of the things we were struggling as well is thinking where does this fit in, how to use the tool and not become a slave to the tool. And I like what you said there, because it kind of liberates a little more on our thinking there. We actually thought an explore zone where you can provide something similar to Amazon, where they have that X-ray feature, where you have different things that are going on at the time, and you can expand on it to the point where how do you provide content along the way or comments along the way, where as Patrick was mentioning, but in the classroom where people are watching it, can people actually provide comments along the way and save that information? We were coming up with ideas like that in Explore Zone. The Guide Zone kind of threw us off a little bit. We were kind of trying to figure out when there, but more like validated learning maybe. Again, we try to use it as what would we put in here, but yeah, some type of validated learning type of things in that section. So, and then the other thing too with personalized, really the how do you tailor the learning, profiling, recommendations, ratings, and those type of things. It was an interesting tool to use.
Yeah, and sometimes some zones don't make sense, don't apply, but that's fine. So other zones are missing, and you can add them. Like I think Ellen shared earlier, right? You can add the additional zones that may be important for your own experience, for your own customers, and for their experience of your product. So let me ask you a question. How can you use this framework in your workplace with your team?
So as I'm working in a digital product space, and product discovery is one of the things, to be honest, where we would like to spend more focus on. We're always lacking. because we're delivering, and nobody is really taking the breath to go back to the problem space and constantly validating, okay, now what? Asking that question, what is the customer feeling? So I would like to use that framework in general to think about the different dimensions of these zones, not always trying to cover all of them, but pick a specific zone and start raising questions for that zone. Then we can ideate about it and maybe deliver even something, and then go back and maybe put another zone in the focus. This is what I would try to do.
That's great. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I totally see that. Especially when you get stuck into this cycle of building, and without even stopping, asking the question, should we really build that? Is that the right thing to build? And then the zones of value can help to really create that map for what is valuable for your end users. Anybody has one additional example to share?
So we're thinking of driving the journey through all these zones, and we're kind of focusing on connectivity. We're thinking about networking. So I threw out a thought about your thought about bubbles and connections. There's some shows out there about connecting the dots, like a famous old show in England called Connections, which is a scientific show where you connect one thing to another. And so we thought, well, maybe a child or a young adult or whoever wants to learn could put a word out there, and it starts connecting and building a relationship with other people more as a collaborative, and that connects to content that might be specific to a subject, or might be something that pops up that is kind of new. Like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. Engaging multiple people together. Weren't really sure about the welcome. Thought welcoming may be open to diversity, so you could actually see where this person was from. Maybe there's a background that would bring in other people. Obviously, collaboration, exploration, discovery, personalization. That's the gist of it.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me ask you a follow-up question. So there was in this exercise, now that you have that experience, how can you use this framework in your work environment, like with your team, your real life?
So for me at this moment, I'm working more on data and reporting. So part of it doesn't apply, but in other areas, because I'm in healthcare, I'm in retail, and I'm in banking. So in other areas, obviously, personalization, this is the type of report I want, maybe. This is the type of data I need. Maybe I'm working with a bunch of CEOs or C-level executives, and this is the kind of data I want, but I also want their input. So going back to the connectivity word data, that probably provides a collaborative effort and communication that builds with them. And I'm sure you all know CIOs and executive people haven't got a clue what they're talking about. So it builds a conversation, right? And that enables them to explore, discover, and perhaps deliver.
Yeah.
Does that work?
I'd actually, just to offer something, makes a ton of sense. Using this framework to communicate to stakeholders is extremely effective, actually, especially ones that do not have technical product experience. This really helps to, anchor things. And if someone, has a request, or leadership has a request for certain features and they don't fit into your zones of value, sometimes it's like, well, should we build this, or let's go back, right? So it creates that conversation. The other piece is I use this for data projects all the time, because with data, you're generating value in various ways. There's security elements, but then there's insights. How is the data ultimately being used? Everything in between with infrastructure. So you don't need to use these particular zones of value. You create ones that are very specific to your data projects, right? What your stakeholders are trying to generate from doing the project. So I would offer that as another tip as well.
So I'd like to share one last thing with you all. So the word that we have shared today, the 5 dimensions of innovation and the zones of value, are 2 of the frameworks that we use in the Spark Engine Certified Product Innovation Professional program, which is a 6-week product accelerator program. So we spend a little bit of time in training, learning about the frameworks, and then we spend 6 weeks, actually the participants spend 6 weeks working on a real product while getting coaching from us, from the trainers, step by step, building the product idea. And if you're interested in learning more, there is a bit.ly link over there. I put the same link in the chat. And with that, I would like to thank you all for the participation today. We are happy to stay behind to answer any additional questions, any question on the Spark Engine program, what we do, on the zones of value, of course. And it was a pleasure working with you. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Please connect with us on LinkedIn or any other ways. We would like to stay connected.
Well, let me express the gratitude that you took the time to come here and show us and introduce the framework to us. I think this is going to be very helpful for many people.
Thank you. It's so great to meet everyone.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Tom, I just want to thank you all for everything. Stefan, thank you so much for hosting this. Really, my first time with one of your meetups, and it was just fantastic. And our presenters did such a great job. And I thought I would give you some feedback from my universe. It's like I work in the nonprofit space, and I've been using the Lean UX Canvas as like a heuristic tool, kind of a way to analyze problems and approach various types of problems, not necessarily products per se, but I love the kind of holistic, non-linear nature of your frameworks and the zones of value, the focus on user experience, and kind of that outside in sort of approach to stuff, or outside in, inside out. And I just want to tell you, I'm going to be using it to try to understand my complex world in ways that I think are going to be very helpful. So thank you very much for your work.
Oh, very seamless.
Thank you. Yeah, that's wonderful. Let us know how that goes. I mean, if you have questions, we're on LinkedIn. I'd love to see how you apply it and how it works, especially in the nonprofit space. I have personal interest there. I come from that world as well, and so I'd be curious how that goes.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll connect with y'all. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks for being here,
Patrick.
Patrick.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Stefan, thank you for the opportunity again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for providing this session. That was really great. Absolutely.
Yeah, so good to meet you, Stefan. Thanks again. And yeah, hopefully we'll meet again.